Hello and welcome to the channel. In this video I'm going to talk about what motivates me to get out shooting in the wintertime. Certainly there's a lot of things, a lot of excuses you can make to stay inside. It's too cold, it's too windy, roads are bad, you name it. But actually I find that winter is actually my favorite time of year to actually get out and take photographs. So let's talk about some of the reasons why I like doing that. So one of the things that I really like about shooting in the wintertime is just how much cleaner the air is. And there was an article in the Chicago Tribune back in 2011, I'll put a link down in the description, talks about it, that actually talked about moisture in the air. And so if we think about summertime, there's usually that haziness. But if we look at this photo, we could see things are just really, really clear. And part of the reason for that is in the wintertime, if it's 0 degrees outside, which I know is quite cold, but here in Minnesota, actually we have quite a few days that hit that. It only takes 1/1000th of an inch of water per cubic foot to reach the 100% saturation or 100% humidity level, which is why you see some high humidities in the wintertime, yet it doesn't really feel like that. At the same time, in the summer, if you look at an 80-degree day, it's 22/100ths of an inch. So 22 times more water per cubic foot gets you to that 100% humidity. So a lot more moisture in the air. There's also a lot more pollutants and things like that as well. So the air is just a lot cleaner, gives us much better visibility. And you could see with a lot of these photos that we just have just that extra crispness to them. In addition to the air just being cleaner, another thing that is great about shooting in the wintertime is the light, or what I should really say, the angle of the light. In a lot of cases, we can really shoot all day. And the reason for that is, if we look at the sun angle on January 1st, the highest it ever gets in the sky is about 22 degrees. This would be the same as about 6:45 in the evening on July 1st. So we have a much lower sun angle all day long. What that allows us to do is to really work with the shadows in that. Especially if we have a really nice snowy scene, we get those really nice shadows on the snow. But even when we don't have snow in the scene, just having that nice angular light really helps to bring out the texture and detail. Along the same lines, the day is also very compressed. And what I mean by that is the sun comes up much later and sets much earlier. On January 1st, the sun actually doesn't rise here in Minneapolis until about 10 minutes to 8 in the morning. At the same time, it sets about 4:45 in the evening, actually about 20 to 5 in the evening. So that gives us much more access to those golden hours, that time right around sunrise and sunset. And so we're able to also get that much warmer light much earlier without having to get up really early in the morning or stay out pretty late into the evening, which can also play nicely if you want to do some things like some night photography and some light painting, like what you see in this photo here. This was actually done pretty early in the evening time. It really comes down to environmental conditions. So the environment can really help make winter photography pretty special. On clear days, snowy backgrounds can really help the subject just stand out. If we look at this image of a pine cone, that low light that I talked about earlier really helps bring out the details within the pine cone itself, but then it's really that background with all of the snow that's really helping it to stand out. Imagine if this was taken in the fall with the background with the grasses that are green, or maybe they've started to turn brown depending upon how late in the season it is, or in the summer when everything is really lush. It'd be very hard for this pine cone to stand out on its own, but having that nice white background really, really helps. This also makes a great opportunity for creating some minimalist photos. And if we look at this one with the seed head, what we can see is that now with a very cloudy day, the shadows are almost non-existent. There's probably a little bit of a hint if you look closely enough, but the reality is we really don't see much in the way of shadow. So we have this nice clean background that still has a little bit of texture to it, but it takes something that would be kind of an ordinary subject and really makes it stand out and look really interesting. And this makes for something that we can actually look at for quite a while, looking at all the tiny details that the seed heads provide. And then finally, we can also get a little playful with the scene as well. So here I've got a little toy or figurine of a penguin that I placed in a swampy area, right at the edge of a swampy area by a little pond, so where it turns to just water. Great thing about winter photography is you can also get to angles in that maybe you couldn't other times of year unless you were willing to get pretty wet or pretty dirty. Now with it being very clean, I can just be on top of this little pond, get down nice and low, in fact laying down on the ice when I took this photo. And notice the shadows. So the shadows add a nice element to this, but this was actually taken at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on January 20th of 2024. So about a year ago from when I'm filming this video. Another advantage of these white snowy scenes is the effect it has on color. Since white is essentially the absence of color, and if you were to look at the RGB value, you'd see it's all zeros going across, or if it's slightly off-white, just very minimal numbers in there, it does make the other colors in a photo pop, especially when the scene is dominated by a lot of white. If we look at this photo of this dump truck and canoe, I don't know why there's a canoe sitting next to it, but we look at this particular photo, notice how the colors on the truck really pop out. You can further enhance this if you're to use a polarizer. I didn't in this case because it really didn't need it. We just get those really nice deep colors, and especially things like reds, oranges, blues really do a nice job. If you've ever seen like a cardinal or something like that photographed in a snowy scene, you know how that bird will really pop off the page. If we look at this next photo, this is of a post on a old dock at Gooseberry Falls State Park here in Minnesota up on Lake Superior. Notice how all of the color in the lichen on the post just really pops off the page. It's the first thing that you notice when you look at this. We also have that deep blue in the water from the sky. And this is another one where I didn't need to use a polarizer at all. These colors just pop right out. And you can tell that when you look at the sky because that sky has that pale blue look. So color is really one of those things that winter can really help us pull out of a photo and just make that much more prominent. We can also take advantage of all of that white in a different way, and that's with monochrome images or black and white images. The contrast can really be pushed to really enhance things like details, patterns, textures, and I find it works really well for architectural photos, especially of older historic structures. So here's a photo of the Hornbeck cabin. This is right by Petrified National Monument in Florissant, or the Florissant Beds National Monument, I think is the actual name of it. And notice how we get those blacks in the sky where the sky is blue, also the rich blacks in the structure itself. Here's another example taken in northern Minnesota, up in the Brainerd Lakes area. And again, we can see really how we could pull that contrast out. Things that are red, things that are blue really become nice and dark in the photo. The white gives us that really bright contrast. So it's really a fun thing to play around with winter photography. And I find it's a great time for doing these black and white shots. Winter is also a great time for photographing wildlife and animals in general. We've already talked about how the snow can really make the subject stand out from the rest of the scene. But another great thing about photographing animals in the winter is they tend to have much thicker coats. So if we think about things like bison as an example, I think this is really when they look their best. Now, the challenge is it is a dark animal against a very bright background, so we do have to be careful with our exposure. But if you think about what a bison looks like when you see it in the spring or the summer, winter is definitely their best season. It also is easier to find wildlife in the winter as well, since all wildlife needs water and food in order to survive, and both of which can be pretty hard to come by. So if you know of sources for those things, that is a great place to go and hang out, and just with a little bit of patience, you can get some really interesting shots. But even domestic animals can also make for some really, really great photos. And here we have a photograph of a horse running in a pasture with the snow flying around. And this just makes for just a really fun image. So wildlife is definitely something that I enjoy, another thing that gets me out and going in the wintertime. And finally, what about those days when it is just kind of miserable? Maybe it's really snowing hard, or maybe we have a really dense fog or a lot of steam. This can also be a great time to be out shooting. And I really like going out in snowstorms. Now, obviously, you have to be careful. Make sure that it's safe to get to whatever your destination is, where you want to shoot. Some of these photos, I just happened to be there when the storm came in. So if we look at this photo taken up in Grand Marais in Minnesota, see the snow's coming down really hard. I have a really nice contrast element with the building in the back, and the people on the sidewalk really kind of tells that complete story. Here's another shot of some dogs with a dog sled, or part of a dog sled team. And we've got the snow coming down. It's giving some really nice separation between them and the background, which makes for a pretty nice story. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a like. That will, as I understand it, help YouTube show this video to other people so more people can enjoy it. And if you'd like to know when I post new videos, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that little bell, and you'll be notified whenever I post something new. Thanks for watching. Bye.